The planet Maze V was not a world meant for travelers. To the galactic cartographers, it was a non-Euclidean biological anomaly. To the soldiers who had died there, it was simply the green hell. The planet was covered from pole to pole in a single interconnected organism known as the shifting green. The shifting green was not just a forest, it was a living, breathing labyrinth. The trees didn't stay where they were planted. They possessed a hyper-accelerated root system that allowed them to move across the surface like slow-motion chess pieces. If you walked into a clearing, the trees behind you would close in, and the path ahead would disappear into a wall of thorns. The forest was sentient, and its primary instinct was to confuse, isolate, and eventually compost any creature that stepped into its domain. The native inhabitants, the chloromorphs, were the architects of this botanical nightmare. They were spindly, bark-skinned beings who lived in the canopy, moving in perfect sync with the forest's shifts. They didn't need walls or fortresses. The forest was their weapon. They watched with amused detachment as previous invaders, the technologically advanced Veilcore and the elegant resonants, wandered in circles until they died of thirst or madness, unable to find the same path twice. When the human Third Engineering Conquest Fleet arrived to claim the amber oil found in the planet's soil, the chloromorph high weaver, Elara, rustled her leaves in a sound that resembled a dry laugh. "The blocky ones have arrived," Elara whispered through the root network. "They bring their compasses. They bring their maps. They think that by drawing a line they can master the circle. Let them enter. Let the shifting green swallow their straight lines. By sunset they will be lost. By sunrise they will be fertilizer." The first wave of human scouts was, as expected, a disaster. They tried to use GPS, but the forest moved faster than the satellite updates. They tried to blaze trails, but the trees they marked would simply walk away, taking the markers with them. Men went around a corner and vanished. They fired flares, but the canopy shifted to block the light. The forest was playing with them, creating paths that led nowhere and rooms that shrank until the walls were made of thousand-year-old oak. "We can't establish a perimeter," the scouts screamed over the radio. "The ground is moving. The trees are literally walking behind us, requesting permission to burn it all." But General Marcus I-Beam Ironside, commander of the Engineering Corps, denied the request. Burning the forest was inefficient. It ruined the soil and destroyed the very oil they were there to harvest. Ironside was a man who didn't believe in fighting nature with fire. He believed in fighting nature with geometry. Ironside was a master of industrial brutalism. He spent his life in the gray, rigid worlds of the human core, where every corner was 90 degrees and every surface was bolted down. He looked at the shifting, chaotic mess of Maze V and didn't see a forest. He saw a lack of structural integrity. "They think they can move the map?" Ironside growled, tapping his cigar against a steel railing. "Fine. Let's give the map some bones. Stop the infantry push. Bring in the monoliths." The humans didn't send in more soldiers. They sent in the grid layers. The chloromorphs watched in confusion as the human ships hovered low over the canopy. They didn't drop bombs. They dropped mass. Thousands of 10-ton reinforced steel I-beams, each 50 feet long, were fired into the ground like giant needles. They weren't just dropped. They were driven deep into the bedrock by pneumatic hammers. Then came the crossbeams. Using massive automated cranes and robotic welders, the humans began to construct a planetary grid. They didn't care where the trees were. They began to build a massive interlocking skeleton of cold, hard steel directly over and through the forest. "What are they doing?" Elara hissed, feeling the vibration of the steel piercing the earth. "They are building a cage? They think to box the wind." She commanded the forest to strike back. The shifting green went into a frenzy. Roots as thick as tanks erupted from the soil, trying to pry the steel beams out of the ground. The trees tried to lean and crush the construction platforms. The forest attempted to rearrange itself to trap the grid layers under a canopy of falling wood. But Ironside was ready for the momentum of growth. "Engage the bolters," he ordered. The human steel sappers descended in heavy, armored rigs. They didn't carry saws. They carried industrial bolting cannons. Every time a tree tried to move, the humans would clamp a massive, 6-foot-wide steel collar around its trunk and bolt it directly to the stationary grid. Every time a root tried to lift a beam, the humans would fire a tension stake that anchored the grid to the very core of the planet. The shifting green groaned. It was a sound of agony, the screech of wood against steel. The forest tried to shift, but it couldn't. Its legs, the roots, were pinned. Its arms, the branches, were caged in a rigid, unyielding tessellation of steel I-beams. The humans weren't following the maze, They were deleting it. You cannot do this. Elara screamed, her psychic voice echoing through the steel. The world must breathe. The world must move. You are turning the great green into a graveyard of metal. No, lady, Ironside replied, his voice carried through the external speakers of the grid. I'm turning it into an efficient workspace. You like labyrinths? Well, I like warehouses. And a warehouse is just a maze where everything stays where it's put. By the end of the month, the shifting green was gone. In its place was the great cage. The entire forest had been partitioned into perfect 100-meter squares. Every tree was numbered, collared, and bolted to a grid that didn't move an inch. The chloromorphs, once the masters of the weave, were trapped in their own square cages. They couldn't move between the trees because the humans had installed steel mesh floors and reinforced walkways. The humans didn't need maps anymore. They had the coordinates. Section 44B is ready for extraction, a foreman reported. The trees in that sector are secure. They aren't going anywhere. The humans began to harvest the amber oil with clinical precision. They didn't have to worry about ambushes because they had clear lines of sight through the steel corridors. They didn't have to worry about getting lost because every beam was labeled with its exact distance from the landing pad. Humanity had proven the ultimate industrial HFY truth. Nature is a beautiful, shifting, and unpredictable force. It can create mazes that no mind can solve and traps that no eye can see. But nature relies on flexibility. Humans, however, are the masters of rigidity. We are the species that looks at the chaos of the wild and decides that a straight line is better. We don't solve the maze. We cage the monster that built it. We don't learn your paths. We bolt our own over them. Highweaver Elara sat in her small, square cage of steel, watching as the humans drove their heavy trucks down the perfectly straight steel roads. The forest was silent. The shifting had stopped. The world was now a series of right angles and there was no way out. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Keep it straight. Keep it bolted. If you enjoyed this structural victory over the shifting forest, hit that like button. Comment below. What's the most chaotic thing you'd like to see humans organize with steel? Subscribe for the next conquest of Saga 12, the Ash Canopy. The grid is set. The world is still.